I'm Mark Eichman with State of Play, and we're joined once again by Jan Ting, a Newsworks contributor and professor of law at the Beasley School of Law at Temple University. Also here is Stephanie Hansen, an attorney with Young, Conaway, Stargett, and Taylor. Well, you both know how business works in Delaware. Now we have the New York Times comparing Delaware to a foreign tax shelter in the Cayman Islands. Is that fair?
I don't really think that it's fair. I mean, I think that Delaware prides itself on a particular whole business court structure. I mean, we have something that no other state has, which is a whole court system that's made up to accommodate businesses. And so that means, that's our Delaware Chancery Court. And that means that you've got case law, a long history of case law as to how businesses are going to be treated here. It's that consistency and knowledge that attracts businesses to the state of Delaware. Now, to the extent that our laws are used to prop up or to enable a criminal enterprise, I think that we need to make sure that we're on top of that, and we need to police that ourselves. I mean, I think that's a great article because it perhaps has brought some things to light. But we need to police that sort of things ourselves, or someone else is going to police it for us.
Yeah, I agree. The whole purpose of corporations, after all, is to limit the liability of the true owners. And so I think to a certain extent, these bad players who set up corporations in Delaware, if Delaware hadn't been available to them, they would have set up corporations somewhere else. And as Stephanie says, the attraction for people to set up corporations in Delaware is not primarily secrecy, it's not taxation, it is the basic infrastructure that we have so that investors have confidence that corporate disputes will be resolved fairly and expeditiously. I mean, one interesting question is, because we receive so much revenue from corporate fees, why don't other states imitate what we have in Delaware and do the same thing? And heaven knows they've tried, but the reality is, yeah, you can copy Delaware's laws, you can even adopt Delaware's case law as your case law, but what you can't do is you can't adopt the Delaware system prospectively. You can't say that future decisions in your state are going to be as expeditious and as fair as the determinations that are made in the Chancery Court in the state of Delaware. So we have something good here. It's not based on secrecy. It's based on a good system of handling business law cases.
And there's a bill floating around in the Senate, complicated, not to get too much into it, but it does want to change tax laws that does impact Delaware. Should Delaware be forced to change the way it's been doing business for years and years and years?
Well, all states compete on the basis of having a good tax environment. So I'm not sure that there's anything new there. I think, as Stephanie suggests, the New York Times article is good in calling attention to the secrecy aspects of incorporation, and I think Delaware needs to look and see are our laws in that regard significantly different than the laws in other states, and do we need to tinker with them to try and deter bad players from incorporating in the state of Delaware? I think that's something that can and should be looked at.
And maybe that comes in the form of taking a closer look at what's necessary to pierce the corporate veil in some instances where you think that there is criminality.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a perception, I think, of Delaware being business friendly, and what exactly that means. Friendly, wink, wink, we'll kind of let this slide, or friendly in the consistency that you've been talking about?
Well, it's friendly in that it doesn't take much to set up a business. I mean, to set up a business or an LLC, it's not a very complicated thing to do. I mean, I incorporated my mother's little beauty salon down in Seaford. Just for the liability aspect, so that someone doesn't trip and fall off the steps, she doesn't lose her house. The ability to do that in a very quick and easy and inexpensive way is what makes Delaware so attractive. We were able to do that with a certificate of incorporation that's very easy to put together, an operating agreement that's a couple of pages long, and about, I think, a total of $150 worth of filing fees. And it's all done within, you could do it in an afternoon.
Nobody in Delaware wants corporations in Delaware used to carry out criminal enterprises, right? We're all in agreement on that. And the challenge is, well, how do you prevent that from happening and at the same time not impeding all the legitimate businesses that want to set up corporations in the state of Delaware, like Stephanie does all the time, you know? So that is the challenge, and I think the state of Delaware is up to looking at that question and figuring out what, if anything, needs to be done to address the concerns raised in the New York Times article.
It is a delicate balance. Try to keep our eye on it. Thank you very much, Jan Ting and Stephanie Hansen.